to achieve leadership and inclusion for our nation. We also know that the whole world is watching what Australia does with the NDIS. It is the greatest social reform for us since Medicare, and it is one of the largest reforms in a generation or two in terms of life, of people's lives. So really, this global leader for inclusion, as it is aspirational, we are already making great steps towards achieving it. So we're very proud of this why, and we work towards this every day. Our why is underpinned by our values, and it's our values that drive our culture. So if you are a person that works at Everyday Independence, or indeed a participant or somebody that uses our services, or you're in a community that interacts with Everyday Independence, you will always experience our values. And it's our values that weave through both employees, participants, and communities that really embeds our culture. So you'll see some of these values come to life tonight, but for graduates, one of the really important values is that we champion the person. So you will champion a participant. You know, when you're working with a person with a disability, they want to build skills and confidence. And we know that when you're in your first year of practice, that's what you're here to do as well, build skills and confidence. We will also work with you to inspire with belief. So to support you to really understand what is possible for you as a therapist, the same way that we want you to work with participants to really understand what is possible for them. And you'll start to hear our change maker terminology, but we really are out there to change the game. To be global leaders for inclusion, we need to work together in simplified ways, one team with purpose, I should say, and to really go out there and change the game for disability. And part of that is actually changing the way that all Australians think about disability, not just therapists, not just people with a disability, but how all Australians think about disability. And that's when we will truly achieve a more inclusive society. So we are making an impact nationally, and I would be also able to say internationally. We've now partnered with the APM group that serves over 10 to 14 countries. So we are going global. But here in Australia, we have more than 700 employees. We now have 40 hubs. We're in every state of Australia, and we really continue to focus on expanding our reach in Queensland, Tasmania, Western Australia, and New South Wales. The other thing that's been really important about adding to our team is that we are now got a really embedded habit coach program. You'll hear more about that tonight, but habit coaches are a way that we are able to get impacts faster, greater outcomes, and really provide great value for money for people with a disability and the Australian community. So the reason why we talk about this, graduates have a real opportunity to work in a model that is going to support them to be future fit. And we want you to be working not for a year or two, but a decade, 2, 3, or 4, because you are the workforce that is really going to bring the potential of the NDIS to life. And we want to teach you how to do that. So tonight is all about learning and development. How will you learn to do that? That's going to be the question I hope that we answer. So the way that we do that is we, as I said, build future fit practitioners. So let me just start really with a reflection or a story about myself. I was thinking about, when preparing for this evening's event, about what was learning and development for me when I was a new graduate. And that was some 20 plus years ago now. But I was working in the Victorian Spinal Cord Service, and I was working with people that had spinal cord injuries. And I vividly remember this day where I was working with 2 people that were C4-5 quadriplegics. So for those of you that may not have been exposed to that yet, that really meant that they couldn't move from the neck down. And I was standing in between these 2 plinths, and they were patients at the time because they were in a healthcare setting. Here at Everyday Independence, we refer to them as people or participants, but they were patients. And one patient, let's call her Melanie, she had been injured surfing, and the other patient, Sean, had been injured in a car. Now, because Sean had been injured in a car, this is 20-something years ago, but he had compensation. He had compensation through the Transport Accident Commission. And because of this compensation, Sean was able to have an attendant-propelled wheelchair. Sorry, I'll start again. He was able to have a manual wheelchair, a power wheelchair. He was able to have his discharge destination at home because he was able to have 24/7 care. And we were already talking to Sean about returning to work as a software engineer in the city. Now, Melanie was injured on a surfboard, so she had no form of compensation because this was pre-NDIS. Now, Melanie had an attendant-propelled wheelchair, so she had to ask somebody whenever she wanted to go somewhere. She wasn't able to return home because there was no provision or money for her care, so her discharge destination was an aged care facility. Many months later, I visited both Melanie and Sean was living at home. He was engaged to his fiancée. Melanie did have a fiancé and she was occasionally visiting him on the weekends, but he even needed to help her with her bowel regime because there was no care in place for her. I visited Melanie and she was sitting in between two demented adults, dribbling into their bibs, and that was her daily living. Melanie died 8 years later in the aged care facility after a long battle with depression. Sean today has a wife, 2 children. He's a software engineer still. He works in the city 4 days a week and he's an amateur sit skier. Now, I tell you this story because at this point, I was like, I couldn't understand the injustice of it all. I couldn't understand how somebody's injury, somebody had been injured in a car versus somebody that had been injured in surfing with the same prognosis had 2 completely different outcomes, all because of funding. And so when the NDIS was introduced, I knew that's exactly where I needed to be because the NDIS means that no matter how you acquire your injury or no matter how you are born, you will always have the reasonable and necessary supports to support you to reach your full potential. So the NDIS was introduced and I was like, that is where I want to work. This is what I want to do. How do I do that? And I joined Everyday Independence 12 years ago. And it was the learning and the development that didn't just teach me how to work as a practitioner or a therapist in that space. It was the learning and development that enabled me to work within the NDIS system. It enabled me to develop the emotional intelligence skills of what it was like to imagine and support people with a disability. It's even helped me, I'm a little bit older than many people on this call, with my digital literacy skills, but then of course the technical skills that I needed to be a practitioner to enable people to go out there and live their full life. So learning and development is actually about deciding what is it that you want to do and then developing a really person-centered plan towards how you want to do that and then embarking on an environment that is going to have all of those opportunities there for you. So I hope that you learn that tonight. Now, can you see my screen? Are the slides still up, Esther?
They are now. They weren't, but you're good now.
Good now. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. So we've got the NDIS and this is here and I couldn't be more happy about it. I often say to people, I feel so privileged that every day I get to work in the NDIS and also make a difference to people's lives, but also make a living. And more recently was a time to be proud when Bill Shorten, who leads government services and NDIS for the Labor government, came out and made a report and said all of the things that needed to change in the NDIS in order to make it successful leading into the future. And Everyday Independence is already doing all of those things. So we have our state-of-the-art Everyday Lead tool, which is exclusive to Everyday Independence and is backed by research that is both global and national. And it is only at Everyday Independence, and our new graduates all get access to this. We have our APM partnership, which now enables us to take participants on a full journey and to pathways for employment. So we really have the opportunity now to say to participants, regardless of their disability, what do you want to be when you grow up? Knowing that there is a model and the funding there to support them to get there. We know that social model delivers person-centered support and outcomes, and social model is at the essence of our values and our culture. At the essence of social model is person-centered practice. So employees need to be person-centered so they can learn, develop and thrive. and participants need a person-centered approach so they can also learn, develop and thrive. And as I mentioned, we've got our Habit Coach program, which really enables us to stretch participant funds further, but it also enables participants to get to their outcomes much, much quicker because they're embedding the skills that they learn in therapy into their habits and routines. And our graduates and all of our team members tell us actually that they love the Habit Coach program because they see outcomes happen so much more quickly, and that's incredibly satisfying in their work. And as a graduate, it certainly helps you build your confidence. Oh, sorry, guys, I'm having a few problems with the with this. Here we go. So I think I've already probably demonstrated to you that we are leading the charge for change, and we've got the most incredible depth of mentors, evidence-based trailblazers, leaders, clinical specialists, and you're going to see some of that showcase tonight. But we really are trying to extend just beyond everyday independence and really influence and change the way that the NDIS is delivered to Australia. So these are just one of a few amount of people that we're really proud of in our organisation. So why work in disability? Our graduates and in fact, many employees tell us, both at Everyday Independence, but also through research, that people want cause, community, and career when they're working. So cause, I mean, disability, the impact that you can have on people's lives and the purpose-driven work that we do certainly contributes to that need to work in a purpose-driven or a cause-given way. Community, we talk a lot at Everyday Independence about being, belonging and becoming. So you're part of a community, you're part of a hub, you're part of a broader community. We have learning communities, we have social communities, and it really is about providing that community. And community is also a great protective factor to your mental health and well-being. We know that allied health professionals can experience burnout, so a community amongst a whole bunch of other things you will see tonight, or at least see on our website, will help you with that as well. And career. The NDIS is the fastest growing system in Australia. 1 in 5 jobs will be in health and social care by 2025. So congratulations, you have chosen an area where you can certainly have a flourishing career, whether it is in leadership and or in clinical excellence or evidence-based research. I'm just going to check in if my screen is doing the right thing.
Yep, you're all good.
I'm good. Thanks very much. So our graduates come in on our Everyday Flying Start program, and what you can expect is a 12-month program, and we have a rolling monthly intake throughout the year. So we hear from many of our graduates that some like to get started straight away, some like to have a break, some have other responsibilities that they need to attend to first. So we have a monthly intake across the year. I think one of the most wonderful things about our program is that we established it in 2014. And so we were the very first of many of the larger NDIS organisations to take graduates. And we knew that we needed to do this because we needed to build the capacity of the workforce to be able to work in the NDIS. But every year, our graduates have offered us feedback and given us ideas about how we can improve the program. So year on year, or indeed, dare I say it, month on month, the program's been improved due to the incredible input of our graduates. What the graduate program enables you to do is to build a really strong clinical foundation. So it will enable you to hone those technical skills that you've started upon at university or part of your placements. And then what it will also enable you to do is to build all of the professional skills that scaffold that as well. As I said, we're social model, person-centered. We have a variety of supports, which I will show you, and you're going to be able to access the supports that best work for you. We certainly have, and we're very proud of, industry-leading learning and development, and you will be supported every step of the way. This slide is a little busy, but I really think that it demonstrates to you that it really is a scaffolded approach to you in your first month. And our roles are ongoing after month 12. And often I hear from our graduates that they feel that the magic really happens in that second year because they get to further consolidate their skills and build their skills and confidence in that second year as well. But there is definitely a really well thought out program for you. So we do say to you that you've done the hard work at university and now you're here to get your career off to a flying start. I often say to people coming out of university, it's like you're on your P plates, you're ready to go, but that's when the learning really starts to happen because you're actually in repeat utilising those skills. And we're there to support you every step of the way. So I mentioned a person-centered approach to learning and development and a person-centered approach to support. So we have, you can see all of these different ways in which we support our graduates, and indeed all of our team members. Everybody has access to these things. So there's things in there to support you with your mental health and well-being and your connections. So Hub Life, for example, there's administration support to help you with scheduling and planning your day and your week and your month. But there's a whole bunch of other things in here as well. So shadowing and observation, lots of mentoring. We have career coaching, which is going to be showcased at one of our graduate events. I think it's later in the year, perhaps in October. So that would be a great event to come to. And you're going to hear about a number of these other things that are really, really impactful on the way that people learn and the way that they build their skills, their confidence, and ultimately the outcomes that they get for participants. We know that if people are learning, if people are passionate about what they do, that drives really great results for our graduates and ultimately really great outcomes for the people we support. So learning and development, the everyday way. Our graduates have a everyday Flying Start induction, and that's an 8-week induction that really starts to support you to understand your tech, the systems, the platforms, and fundamentally the way that you would work as a clinician in what we would say is the most contemporary evidence-based way for working in disability. You will also have a new graduate learning community. So you've got live learning sessions where you come together with all of the new graduates from across the nation. We have a clinical competency tool, so really clear, that supports you to stay on track and develop your clinical skills. And then you're going to hear tonight lots of different ways of mentoring, and more mentoring, discipline-specific, interdisciplinary, team leader support, digital drop-ins. You'll hear more about that this evening. We know that mentoring that is in real time, that is relatable, that is evidence-based, is really going to support you to set yourself up for success in that first year. So as I mentioned, what happens after you finish the program? I know that feels like such a long way away, but I often say to our graduates, please think about that second year because it comes really quickly and that's where the magic really happens. That's where you start to be able to really feel like everything is coming together and you have can really start to make an impact on the participants that you work with, but you're also contributing to your team and you will find yourself supporting people that are at an earlier stage or a younger stage in their career than you as well. So we have people that take a more general pathway, which is disability practitioner. We have people that remain within their discipline, which might be OT, physio and speech. And then we have some other areas of practice that some people really enjoy as well. So working in the early childhood key worker, positive behaviour support, housing and needs assessment and assistive technology. And if you want to know more about those, please look at our website, but we also have other career events. So for example, in August, we've got a great event, which is about unlocking your clinical passion. You'd be able to explore these areas even further. This is a super busy slide. It is here just to demonstrate to you that there's a very specific, well thought out pathway for career development at Everyday Independence. This is most certainly industry leading. We've had people invited to present at conferences based on this work. And the thing about this work is that it really does set you up for success to be a leader, either clinical or operational in the NDIS. But the other thing that's really fabulous about this is that you can actually move between different areas of the clinical pathways as well and translate knowledge and skills between the areas. So there really is a great opportunity for you to really explore broadly if you want to, or to specialize early if you want to, or whatever that might look like in between. So you don't need to take this all in. It is just to demonstrate to you that there is a pathway that you would be working through with your leader, your mentor, and the career coach. So I love this slide because this is really at the essence of what an everyday independence graduate experience could look like, or indeed an everyday independence employee journey. But as I mentioned before with our values, it's also the way that we work with our participants. We inspire with belief, and we will support you to believe in yourself, to really understand what your strengths are and support you to really advocate for your own passions. And then we'll support you to push yourself out of your comfort zone and expand your boundaries. So I'm often saying to people, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay, there's real opportunity in life if you can take some risks, and we really do support you to take some risks and to make some mistakes and to support you to learn it along the way, because that's how you're going to work out how you really can make a difference. And then you'll make your breakthrough. And I think making breakthroughs doesn't just happen once, it happens on multiple occasions. But we are looking for people that aren't just therapists. We're looking for people that want to be a change maker. We're looking for people that want to change the way in which the world thinks about disability. And we want to support you to support others and yourself to be really valued and respected members of your community. So this is the exciting part of the evening. I'm really excited to introduce our speakers. We call ourselves, or we call them, everyday change makers, and they really are. Our speakers tonight are, have come along tonight, or have been chosen to come along tonight, because they are doing exactly what I mentioned in the previous slide. They are pushing at the boundaries. They are being comfortable with being uncomfortable. They are always embracing our learning and development opportunities at Everyday Independence, and are really quite inspirational in the way in which they work. So I do feel like they live that value every day of championing the person and inspiring with belief. So I think we've got Ella is coming along tonight, Chelsea and Maddie, but we're going to start with Maddie tonight. Maddie, are you with us this evening?
Yeah, welcome. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you. Well, Maddie, I'm going to introduce you, and you have been with Everyday Independence for more than 8 years now. I feel like we've known each other for a lifetime. You do have a background in OT, but you're currently the clinical educator for or the lead for learning of development across the whole of the Everyday Independence organisation. So in your role, Maddie supports practitioners across the organisation with clinical skills development and actively supporting graduates in the Everyday Flying Start program. Maddie, I feel that you've really, when I think about that clinical pathway that I put up before, you've tried so many different things. You've been OT, positive behaviour support practitioner, learning and development lead. I know you've done things in certainly housing and all other areas that I perhaps don't even know the depths to your knowledge, but we are absolutely thrilled to have you along tonight.
Thank you. Yes, I have definitely had a taste of everything. So if anyone's got questions about, I guess, those career pathways at the end of today as well, more than happy to talk shop about that, because I think it's probably the thing I like most about EI is that safe place to try new things and have almost that career change without having to leave your friends and your office.
Fantastic. Now, Maddie, I don't think people can see you on the screen. Is that correct, Esther?
I can see Maddie. Yep.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so please just let me know if you can't see Maddie, because we certainly want to see Maddie as she speaks. Okay, so Maddie, we're going to kick off with some questions. As clinical educator, what are the learning and development opportunities for graduates on our 12-month program? And what experience might they be able to tap into that they wouldn't necessarily get elsewhere?
It's a very long list, but I'll try and keep it pretty short and sweet and to the point. But I think your slides earlier definitely highlighted some of the primary ones. So the main one being that monthly learning community, which is an interprofessional learning opportunity for everybody, which I do think is quite unique to EI, being able to connect with all those different disciplines that come in at the same time, because it really honours, I guess, the shared skills that each allied health profession does have. I think you also mentioned on the previous slides there, the discipline-specific mentoring. So from the minute you sort of launch on day one, you will be meeting your discipline-specific mentor, which really honours that hone your craft piece that you had there, Ingrid, around being able to connect with that person that's gone through what you've gone through and knows how to really keep you safe and professionally building your skills in the right way. We also have things like a community of practice that runs every month for each of the disciplines, and then for some of those career pathway options that you had on the screen as well. So, you know, it's a great opportunity to be able to dive into not just the discipline specific one, which every graduate is enrolled in from day one. So you will see out your 12 months with your, say, OT community of practice, as well as on the alternating fortnight, the new graduate year learning community. You could also tap into, say, the positive behaviour support one if there was a topic running that you thought was very interesting as well. Then we've got some of what we call more of our centralised supports that really sort of round out the clinical graduate support model. So there is the drop-in mentoring, which we call everyday therapy mentoring, which gives you about 18 hours a week of specialist mentors that you can tap into for those really kind of on-the-spot questions, maybe when your mentor is not available. And I think career coaching, which I think was also mentioned on one of the slides as well, is a really nice way to round out your graduate year, to really think about, as Ingrid said, what does year 2 and beyond look like for me, and what are the things that I've really enjoyed and felt really, you know, passionate about. And our career coaching program really gives you that opportunity to make a plan and really work towards it with your mentor. And I think that's the other thing. The mentoring program has really evolved this year in particular, so that the mentor you meet from day one, which hopefully you get along well with, is with you throughout the duration of that career progression. So they can really grow with you and form a great clinical partnership with you. I think that's the key pieces.
Just a few, Maddie. I think you know, it's so wonderful to hear all of those things, and I often hear from the graduates, probably the hardest part is, you know, electing what supports are right for them at any given time. How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, it really comes down to this sort of three-way partnership or triangular network you form with your team leader and that therapy mentor that's linked with you from day one. It really is a partnership in that we want you to really identify how you learn best, you know, how you need to be supported. And I think that really lends itself to the person-centered models that we want to instill with our participants. We also encourage it from an operational or from a management lens as well. So, yeah, definitely using some of that great, you know, coaching and motivational interviewing to unpack what a graduate needs at any given time is definitely driven by your team leader, but the mentor really knows best about teaching clinical skills and will really guide you in that sense as well. So it's a really equal space, but at the same time, you've got two great experts in that little, you know, team of yours that can steer you in the right direction as well.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. I think that was a game changer for EI when we introduced the team leader and the therapy mentor, so people weren't missing out on their sort of professional and wellbeing support or their clinical support. They were getting both. So thank you for demonstrating that. So you did mention communities of practice, which is unique to Everyday Independence, and we are very proud of it. How does it work, and what are the benefits of the learning opportunity to the graduates, but beyond graduation, beyond the graduate program as well?
Yeah. Communities of practice have been a real exciting project for me to be able to lead since I think COVID probably pushed us into this space of really needing some community connectedness. And that is the primary feature of a community of practice. It's that kind of taking away that lecture or top-down approach of learning and giving everybody equal opportunity to have a go at sharing knowledge and skills. You know, it's a great opportunity if you're a graduate to really have a go at practicing some group facilitation and clinical leadership in a very safe and structured forum. Essentially, they run for an hour once a month. We agenda the topics at the start of the year so you can see all the amazing topics running for the year ahead and really plan your learning in advance. And as I said, it's not about just staying to your lane in each of those disciplines, but it was also, I guess it was a balance of giving the disciplines a space to shine and say we do have a bit of a uniqueness, whether we're OT, speech, physio, key worker, etc. But also promoting that interdisciplinary or interprofessional connectedness where there is some commonalities. And sometimes, you know, we have a speech pathologist presenting at the physio sessions and vice versa. So it's been a really well-received learning platform across the company, and it just keeps growing.
It certainly keeps growing. My goodness, yes, it certainly does. So incredible initiative, incredible. So you've mentioned the communities of practice, but let's now, I want to ask you, for people that aren't clear, what's the difference between multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach to support? And what's the learning for a graduate to work in an interdisciplinary team?
So I think that most tertiary or universities still really probably teach to a multidisciplinary model, and it's that very unique to your discipline. You have a very clear set of boundaries and scope of practice, and probably from a learning lens on the job, it really indicates that the workplace needs to teach in that same model. So you would only, if I'm an OT, get my support from an OT. But under that interdisciplinary model, it really honours, again, where the sector of the NDIA wanted to shift. So if we think about that social approach, the interdisciplinary model really lends itself to collaboration, that there is no kind of leader in the team, that everybody is equal, inclusive of the participant. And from a learning lens, I think for graduates, the unique payoff that you get from that is that, you know, if you go and do a joint session and you're an OT and they're a physio, it's still a supervision and mentoring opportunity for you, because you're learning all those interprofessional behaviours that all allied health professionals need to learn and acquire. You know, even some of the clinical assessment skills, like what I've been able to learn from a physio or from a speech pathologist has just, you know, opened up my career clinically and what I can achieve with participants. So I guess it means that every kind of clinical and billable interaction that you have with another profession, with your participants, is inadvertently learning for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And the outcome for the participant, Maddie, multi or inter?
Yeah, look, I think inter is definitely the way to go. You again, you don't feel the burden and the weight on your shoulders as a professional. So there's that piece. But yeah, definitely the vision that you can achieve with a participant is just exponentially bigger than what you could achieve with a multi-disc model. So, you know, I think when I started my practice, it was, you know, I was working on goals like, you know, shoelace tying and really refined, you know, they can hold the toothbrush and hold the cutlery as an OT. To, you know, I've helped people. I was just talking today about, had a participant where we were trying to get her into a sort of a community group, and there was no wheelchair accessibility. And just from that one sort of influence that we could have, you know, everybody in the Bendigo area now can access that group that might be, you know, a wheelchair user or some form of alternative gait aid. So, you know, that's the fun thing about interdisciplinary and working in a social model.
Yeah, you give me goosebumps when you can have an impact like that and multiply the effect. So let's come back to our graduates. What are the biggest challenges for the graduates in the first 12 months, and how at Everyday Independence do we support them to overcome these?
Yeah, I think this is the piece that you know, having had this program evolve since 2014, the evidence that's underpinned this has been pretty extensive, and it's probably no shock to most of the graduates on here or undergraduates that I think the common most challenge that you face is fear of failure or fear of making a mistake, which I hope, as I mentioned, with that interdisciplinary model, you've kind of got that support network around you, you know, every moment of the working day. So that is definitely something we've seen a change in probably our workforce, and feeling that confidence level a lot quicker than maybe in a single or multi-disc model of practice. It's also enabled us to really grow the mentoring model and change our mentors into clinical educators on the ground for you as well. And I think the other critical one we see in the graduate space from a challenge, and definitely a COVID specific one that I've been really intentional at trying to research more, is I guess not having had maybe as much practical experience throughout your undergraduate year, or really a changing landscape, even, you know, what we're seeing financially now. So the socioeconomic changes that have happened, particularly for our participants living with a disability as a result of the pandemic, has really shifted what the scope of practice looks like for any allied health professional in this space. And I guess that's where I'd like to be able to just say to you all that, you know, we do keep our finger on the pulse, and as Ingrid said, ever sort of evolving everything in response to that as much as we can. The curriculum we've designed this year is very much tailored towards graduates that are coming out of a COVID learning environment and into a workforce where we're still dealing with the ramifications of that. So yeah, I think just always evolving is kind of the common theme for us. But yes, hopefully from those kind of professional fear of failure or fear of making a mistake, the support models that we have here, I can guarantee you we have not had any catastrophes, you know, in my time anyway.
No, definitely not. And I think, you know, we will often say, you know, failure isn't not picking up a bat failure is not picking up a bat and swinging it. Failure is not picking up a bat in the first place. So really creating that safe environment where people can make mistakes, because we know that that's when the learning happens. And there's mistakes and there's mistakes. And we really need to also role model to participants, don't we, that it's okay to make mistakes, because that's how participants are going to learn as well. So yeah, absolutely. Helping you through that will be a really important part to your learning and development. So, Maddie, beyond the clinical learning and development opportunities, which there are many, and that's being showcased tonight, what are the other learning workshops do we hold for graduates so that they can sort of support their personal and their professional growth?
Probably the most common one that our graduates opt into is the coach approach and work-life balance courses that run quite frequently. And most recently, sort of things like the mental health first aid training as well, where people can really opt into refining those skills. And emotional intelligence, I believe, is a pretty hot off the press one, and was very popular. And also having access to a professional development budget as well. So whether you choose to use that for, you know, external webinars, conference attendance, we've had people that have used that even to be able to attend some of our internally facilitated trainings in person. So maybe it's running interstate, and rather than always doing learning online like we are tonight, there is definitely that scope to be very flexible with the PD budget and think about, you know, maybe I'm a more active learner and I'd rather be there in person. And I think the last one I'd definitely mention is we've got a lot of resources that we're currently sort of, again, evolving and refining, but it's all coming out of that LEAD tool, which Ingrid mentioned at the start there. So really scaffolding all of our curriculum and learning out of that main assessment tool that every OT, speech and physio graduate would use from day one, so that I guess it simplifies the learning. It's definitely been the piece for me, I've noticed, as an educator role, that adult learning's shifted. And again, I'll probably blame the pandemic somewhat for that, but I think we're the TikTok generation. We want quick to consume resources and not always, you know, a 3-hour long class. So that's definitely the other piece we're really endeavouring to ramp up over the next few months, is those really bite-sized learning opportunities.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the way that our teams are always evolving the way in which we learn and practice to meet the needs of what is essentially our consumer, which is our graduates and our employees. So super exciting. Maddie, thank you. I could talk to you all day. So please stay on, because I'm hoping we do have some questions, but we're going to move across to Chelsea now. Hi, Chelsea. Welcome this evening.
Hi, Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along. Chelsea began her journey at Everyday Independence in January of 2022, starting as a new grad OT and based in our Peninsula hub, having previously studied at Monash University. Now, Chelsea got to experience the benefits and impact of participants working in a social model when she was working in a community placement in her final year. So she was already really clear that she wanted to work for an organisation that provided a social model of support and we were indeed very happy to have her join us. So Chelsea, I'm going to, like Maddie, just ask you a few questions tonight, but really focus on what your experience at EI has been to date.
Sounds great.
Excellent. So let's start with what have been the highlights for you in the Everyday Flying Start experience?
I think as we've spoken about a lot tonight, one of my greatest experiences through my Everyday Flying Start has been just the amount of knowledge you can consume, the amount of learning that is available to you. I say to a lot of my peers that I truly believe I learned more in the first 12 months of working with Everyday Independence than I did probably in the whole 4 years of my tertiary education. Another highlight has definitely been the ability to learn the ins and outs of service provision from experienced professionals, not only from my own discipline, but from a varying range of professions, as we've spoken about, working closely with physios and speech pathologists, positive behaviour support specialists. There's just so many people around you who are so happy to share their knowledge with you. And I think that really ties in with our interdisciplinary approach as well. I'm definitely an outgoing and chatty person. So one of another great experience that has come to me over the last 12 months is just the new friends that I've made. Working in the community gives you such an incredible ability to meet so many new people. I interact with, I'd say, up to 20 people a day, going to schools and going into different communities and talking to all of those people. So you just have such a great opportunity to meet new people. And I guess the last one that I probably touch on would be getting fully immersed in the culture and community of allied health has been such a great experience and such a highlight, specifically through my hub. So I've met some amazing people who I work with every day. I'm so happy to go into the hub and have lunch with them. And it's just such a positive place. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think hub life is definitely, one of those priceless things for a new graduate, isn't it? Because you've got all of the formal supports that we're talking about tonight, but it's those informal supports and interactions that are so important as well.
Absolutely.
So we know that when you came to EI, you already had a passion for working with children and families. How have you been supported to pursue those interests, and what does your caseload look like now that you're, well and truly into your second year?
Yes, I was definitely supported to follow my interests, although I got a little bit lost along the way, and it is a funny story to look back on it now. But when I first started at EI, I'd had over 6 years experience working with children, and I knew it was definitely one of my passions. So when I first got in contact with my team leader, when I was offered the position, it was a real collaborative discussion about what kind of caseload I wanted to take on. So at the time, I told my team leader that despite having this very apparent passion for working with children, that I did want to explore across the lifespan and get a feel of everything. However, after a couple of weeks, I did realize that working with adults was not necessarily my cup of tea. So I spoke with my team leader and therapy mentor, and they more than happily adjusted my caseload to work entirely with children and families to meet my passions. And it is just such a joy to go to work every day when you're going to work with people who you're really passionate about helping and you genuinely enjoy being around. Absolutely. So now my caseload ranges from 4-year-olds all the way up to 19-year-olds.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. I'm sure you have some days where you're exhausted at the end of the day with especially some of the enthusiasm and energy from those little people, but it does sound like a lot of fun.
Definitely.
So you do, when you're working with children and families, you do work with participants as part of an interdisciplinary team. And how's that supported your learning and development in the past year and a half?
So for me, my day-to-day experience of working in an interdisciplinary team normally involves therapy planning with other professions to make sure that we're really providing a collaborative and well-informed approach to therapy. So lots of different professions coming together to share with others. Like, I have some great conversations with our speech pathologist. She is teaching me something new every single day. So we really get this well-informed approach to therapy. Sorry, my dog is just about to bark, so I'm gonna make sure he's out of the room before that
Well,
happens.
you've just showcased beautifully. We do have dogs at Everyday Independence, and you'll
Yes.
probably see them on some slides. So that wasn't planned, Chelsea, but that's certainly that's not uncommon around here for a dog to jump up, is it?
Yes, I just didn't want to blow out anybody's ears who had earphones in, so I was ready on the mute button there for a minute. So I also, to get back to your question, Ingrid, I also complete a lot of OT-specific assessments, which would normally fit more in that multidisciplinary kind of approach. But I think the different way we approach it is we really take a capacity building approach where we inform all of the stakeholders of what the results of that assessment might find, and making sure that we're building up everyone around the participant to be really well informed in that area. So I generally complete things like sensory profile reports, and we make sure we're really disseminating that across to speech pathologists, physios, educators, parents, really anybody involved in the care team. Another factor is also being able to ask professions how you can best support the participants to achieve goals that you may not be directly working on. So, for example, I have learned some very basic keyword sign, which is kind of a derivative of Auslan from the speeches in our hub, so that I can work simultaneously on some of their more communication-based goals, whilst also addressing some of their broader goals as well. And then I think just generally, sorry, Ingrid, to cut you off.
No, not at all.
Working collaboratively with all of these professions has just leveled up my knowledge to a point that, and it only keeps getting, you only keep learning more and more, but you definitely.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that example of doing keyword sign simultaneously, because as you can imagine, if you were a parent, to be able to build those skills and those habits and routines, and the whole team to be working on the same thing, that's going to really accelerate your child's potential far greater than having to really mediate, isn't it, between a whole lot of different disciplines that come in and work with your child. So that's a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
So this is going to be a little bit of a hard question to keep you contained to a time frame, Chelsea. But what learning and development opportunities have had the greatest impact for you in terms of building your skills and your confidence as an occupational therapist?
Yes, so that is, and I piggybacking off Maddie, she definitely went into a bit of detail there. There are so many learning and development opportunities that are available to graduates. If I had to put my finger on a couple of them, I'd say most definitely your ongoing shadowing and observation opportunities. So you don't have to stop shadowing and observing other professions after you finish your Everyday Flying Start program. I attend sessions with physios and mainly with key workers as well, to really see how they're working and how I can incorporate what they know into how I'm practicing as well. So that is definitely one of the best learning and development opportunities. I'm definitely a hands-on learner. I need to see it and, give it a go before I really take it on. So that works really well for me, I guess. And I'd say the other best one that's really worked for me has been the communities of practice. So I attend both the early childhood intervention and the OT specific communities of practice. I'm looking forward to the ones that are coming up. The sensory processing one in June is really up my alley, and I'm looking forward to that. So that has definitely helped build my skill level, which has then definitely built my confidence.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that the remarkable thing about that is you don't just tap into your team, do you? You tap into brains and skills and knowledge across the entire nation in the communities of practice, but then you've got your local shadowing and observation where you can actually go out and see you know, a member of your team or a master in practice. So look, you did very well at containing that, because I know you have really embedded yourself in learning and development. So you did a great
go
job.
on. Definitely.
I know you could. I know you could. Time is against us,
Yes.
but I am really keen to understand the horizon for you now. You emerge. Well, when I say emerge from graduate year, you're well and truly into your second year. But what's on the
Yes.
horizon for you now?
Yes, so definitely continuing to grow and learn. This year, I'm really excited to use my professional development budget. So I'm using my budget this year on 2 Occupational Therapy Australia courses. So keeping within my children and family sphere. So those will be on toileting and sleeping. I'm also so aware of the many growth opportunities that I have for my career. I meet frequently with one of our career coaches, or our career coach, Sally. So a few times we've discussed at length what my opportunities are and how to tie those into what is of interest to me. So definitely working with children and families, I'm keeping an eye on the key worker space, but also definitely having a passion for leadership means that I am exploring how to best set myself up for a team leader role in the future as well. So yeah, that's what's on the horizon for me.
Fantastic. Well, I think that you should absolutely continue on that learning. That's a learning journey. That's a new word that we've come up with tonight. But do continue on that journey, because I know that certainly the way that you have just embraced that first year with openness and curiosity, which is what we ask of our graduates, right? We don't ask our graduates to come in and know. As I say, it's P plates. We ask our graduates to come in and just immerse themselves in the learning experience, because if we can build really competent, confident, skilled people, that's a potential to have, I don't want to scare anybody out there, but 30 to 40 years of contribution to such an incredible purpose. But if you don't come in with that and you expect yourself to know everything and you're not kind to yourself, people can often burn out as early as 6 months, but often within sort of that 5-year period. So really important to approach it in a way that is, really like that second stage from uni, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for open and curious people, certainly not people that know it all. So
Absolutely.
Chelsea, well done, and thanks so much. Please stay on, because I'm sure there may be some questions for you as well.
Absolutely.
Now, certainly not last and least, but we have Ella joining us tonight from Newcastle. Ella is our speech pathologist and has been with Everyday Independence now for just under a year. I think it's about 9 or 10 months now. And Ella originally was a psychology undergraduate and then joined us as a speech pathology graduate in our Maitland hub in New South Wales. So Ella's going to tell us about her university journey, but Ella, I'm really interested to understand from you, and welcome tonight, about why did you choose Everyday Independence to launch your career?
Thanks, Ingrid. And hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I feel like if anyone's going to have major technological issues tonight, it's probably going to be me with my luck. Thanks for your question. Yeah, so with uni, I started off studying psychology, and I did that for a number of years before transitioning over into speech pathology. And I've never really, I haven't looked back since transferring over to speech. I feel like I went into psychology because I was so motivated about person-centered care. So with speech pathology, I kind of wanted to find a way to combine the two. I was really interested about the clinical side of things, but wanted to try and maintain that person side of care as much as I could. And in doing so, I was really drawn in by the social model approach that Everyday Independence models itself to be. And I spoke to a couple of staff members and I learnt a little bit about the company. And I suppose when it comes to the social model and the mentoring that comes along with that, quite similarly to speech pathology, I've never looked back either. So it's been pretty amazing getting to tailor that clinical side of things, but in a much more holistic and person-centered way.
It's certainly been a win-win for us and participants, Ella, having, your speech pathology skills, but also your passion for social model. And you did really demonstrate from the very beginning that you were passionate about advocating for person-centered support. So can you tell us about how you discovered that passion and how that's evolved for you?
I suppose getting into EI and being such a passionate advocate for person-centered support, it's allowed me to reflect quite a bit on university and that more medical model clinical approach. I felt like throughout university, I would often get a little bit frustrated at the really structured, tailored approaches that were being taught to us with each placement I might have gone on, or whether it was tailored to a certain participant. But I just kind of kept finding myself thinking, but everyone's different. They might present with the same disorder or the same challenge, but why is it that I have to follow this strict approach? And I guess I was just frustrated by the lack of flexibility. And it was hard for me because I was so passionate about speech pathology, but wanted to find a way to find that person-centered care and be able to advocate for my participants in that way. Within EI, I guess there's been a lot of things that have come up. Maddie mentioned it briefly, and so did you, Ingrid, the Everyday Lead tool, and that sort of assessment approach that can still be really casual and tailored into conversation, but it allows us to determine outcomes that are really person-centered, but can be measurable at the same time. So something like that in EI has made a really big difference. I think since coming into the social model and with EI, I've just never really looked back.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've already alluded to it a little bit, but how have you changed since joining us as a graduate 9 months ago? And what do you see as the biggest shifts in yourself as a speech pathologist?
My confidence in being able to verbally advocate for participants. I think before starting with EI, I had all this passion inside of me and I didn't know how to let it out. But I've learned from so many people and by doing a lot of the time how to confidently advocate for them, because at the end of the day, they are what matter to me and what matter to the company. I think I've also learned so much about NDIS as a whole, and how funding works, plans work, early plan reviews. There's so much that I actually never learned about at university, which I feel like I've gained so much knowledge in. And I think I've just changed in that way. My understanding of the social model as well has changed positively. And I differ to Chelsea in the way that my youngest participant is 2, and the oldest participant that I support is in her 80s, and I love it. My days are so different. I will go from running around with a 2 or 3-year-old at a childcare centre to then driving over and seeing one of my lovely little 80-year-old participants who offers me a cup of tea, and I always accept the cup of tea, support them with maybe like swallowing and dysphagia, and then I'll head over and see one of my teen participants after school. And I just think that being able to bounce between that has allowed me to learn so much, but it's just I've gained so much confidence from it as well with members of the community.
Fantastic. And I do know too that you are a very celebrated member of your team as well in terms of what you bring to team culture. So I think whilst you're telling us you've brought that energy to your participants, I think you're bringing that to your team as well. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So let's jump into interdisciplinary team. What's been your experience working as part of an interdisciplinary team as a speechy, and how has your perception changed in working with participants in this way?
I have learned so much from other disciplines and other practices, I suppose. I love working as a part of an interdisciplinary team because the way that you can learn from others, it can be just in casual conversations in the office. It could be over lunch in the lunchroom, or you might, if you kind of have a physiotherapist and you both support the same participant, you could say, hey, I might actually see if I can come along and do a joint session with you. I want to learn from you and what you do and how we can work together. And I think that's made a really big difference. I remember being at university placements and seeing occupational therapists, for example, whilst there, and thinking, I have no idea what these guys do. So it's pretty wild now to understand so deeply what they do in their career. at our Maitland hub, we have speechies, OTs, physios, behaviour support, key workers in the early childhood space. And we obviously have our beautiful admin team, and we all just learn so much from each other. Reflecting on it now, I kind of can't imagine working in just a speech-based practice. I think evidence-based and best practice has come from working as a part of an interdisciplinary team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that real one team with purpose, isn't it? And I think there's still,
So.
I think we've still got a long way to go. I think there's people that often say they do interdisciplinary, but they're doing multi, and then some people say they're doing multi, but they're doing single. So that ability to operationalize a social model with interdisciplinary teams, it has taken us many years, but I am delighted to hear that our graduates are now benefiting from it. So thank you very much. Now, everybody, we are over time. That's not unusual. So we're going to keep going with Ella. We have one more question with Ella, and then we'll round it out with just a little bit more about what you can expect working at Everyday Independence. So I anticipate we'll go to about 7:15 or so, or maybe just over. So if you are enjoying tonight, please stay with us. It's yeah, as I said, we'll try and finish up about 7:15, 7:20 at the latest. So Ella, to bring us home for the panel, please tell us what has made the biggest impact for you from an L&D perspective since joining EI.
So much has. But as Maddie mentioned, the new graduate learning seminars have been really, really great. Tomorrow, actually, there's a new grad learning seminar on mental health within the disability population. And I think that's just going to be so important. Like you mentioned, with all the changes through COVID and everything, our participants can really struggle at times. So that's going to be really great to kind of hone in on those skills. The communities of practice I attend as well. We've had in the speech pathology space, we've had neurodegenerative learnings and dysphagia tailored learnings where there's always something new to learn, and there's new approaches that are coming out. I think probably my most favorite is the weekly team meetings that we do and our learnings. We just do them hub based, and we can learn from an OT about sensory processing, or we can learn from a speechy about keyword sign. And that just really shows that tight knit community and those lovely friendships that we have in the hub. And last but not least, I would say that within EI, they do like work-life balance kind of seminars and coaching sessions. And that was something that I went into a couple of months into the full-time work life. I really needed some support with sort of how to balance things and not take my participants home with me. And I think that has changed massively looking at me now. So there's just so much that can offer, and there's always so much support.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, again, very similar to Chelsea, you've just grabbed it with open arms. You've remained curious, you've remained open, you've remained kind to yourself, which is a very important attribute in the new graduate year. So thank you for the impact that you're having on your team, your participants, but also yourself. It's been a very stellar first 9 months, Ella. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Stay around. We're going to just finish off with some slides, and then we'll come back and see if there's any questions. I won't spend too much time on these slides tonight, especially because we're over time, but we do have, as people have alluded to tonight, a very significant infrastructure that supports you to show up and be the best that you can be. And the infrastructure is significant, but then we have coaching that sits within that infrastructure to help you to understand which elements you do want to tap into. So jump on our website, but there really is a focus on wellbeing, flexibility, and growth as well. We have a new remuneration strategy. So many organisations will just pay a base pay rate, and that is, that is one number. And of course, at Everyday Independence, we have a base salary, but then we have 3 other elements to our salaries, which again has some flexibility and person-centred components. So if you were to interview with Everyday Independence and accept a role, we would talk to you about these different areas of the remuneration strategy. But we really want to reward people for going over and above. We really want to reward people for, being open and curious and learning and developing and working within the social model. And we also really want to reward people that are able to provide continuity of service. So we're looking for grit and resilience and things, because we know that our participants excel if people provide them with continuity of service. So again, you don't need to know all of this today, but we do have a number of different things that we can do to support you to achieve your financial goals as well as your career goals. Everyday wellbeing and inclusion, again, huge calendar here, multiple events across the year. It really speaks to inclusion on a variety of levels, so not just disability, but multiple cultural levels as well. Wellbeing calendars to support people to, with physical wellness, financial wellness, mental wellness, social wellness, so across the year. And this really brings our hubs together as well. So please know that there's an infrastructure in place to really support all aspects of human wellbeing, both for employees and participants. Hub life. So I think it was Chelsea that had the dog jump up before. Dogs do make frequent appearances in our hubs, but Hub life is a really great, fun, social, wellbeing protective factor. Wednesdays, every person at Everyday Independence works a Wednesday. We call that our anchor day. It's often about social activities and also learning and development and coming together. There's also other social activities that also happen outside of work as well. So we actively encourage people to participate in Hub Life because the energy and the support and the guidance is really critical to everybody in their employee journey, but particularly a graduate as well. I will mention our Habit Coach program. So our Habit Coach program is critically important to our social model and driving outcomes and value for money for people with a disability. So we know that habits and routines enable people to get everyday things done, but they also enable us to build skills, build confidence, and to feel really satisfied with life. So our habit coaches are made up of allied health assistants and often second, third, and fourth year undergraduate allied health students. So this might be a way that you can test the disability sector before you graduate, if you would like, by working as a habit coach at Everyday Independence. And everybody that you saw on the panel tonight would actually have habit coaches as part of their team. So it's really given many of our graduates up until now a real head start in the workforce and really enabled them to understand what it is that they are buying into when they come to work at Everyday Independence as a graduate. That said, our graduate program is built from day one, so you don't need to be a habit coach. It's just an additional opportunity if that's something that you might like to explore. And there is a fabulous YouTube clip on our YouTube channel, Everyday Independence YouTube channel. I really encourage you to go there. That's going to really tell you more about our organisation, about habit coaches, but also what it is like to work and learn and develop at Everyday Independence. So we have lots of opportunities to find out more. As I mentioned before, we have graduate career events coming up across the year in August and October. So August is all about unlocking your clinical passion. That's a really exciting event. And then career coaching is coming in October. And then for people that are really interested in particular areas of practice, this is not just for graduates, it's for all stages of career. We have career pathway events coming up as well. So if you are interested in early childhood, like Chelsea was this evening, if you're interested in assistive technology, home modifications, or housing support needs assessment, we're going to have a real showcase on how we really ignite that career pathway for you on the 18th of July. And then the 21st of November is going to be looking at 6 clinical career pathways as well. So just again, jump on the website, or it will also be in the chat. You can register for these events. So have a look in the chat tonight because Esther will be putting up some additional information for you. But as always, this slide says join our team, but maybe you don't want to join our team. You're just curious about what it could look like in the future. You can call or email us. We very much use a person-centered approach to recruitment. We truly believe that interviews are a two-way exchange. So we interview you just as much as you interview us, because it is about finding that right fit so we can really support people to explore their passion and their breakthrough. And as I said, our website and our YouTube channel are other really terrific places to go to as well. So that brings us to the formality or the end to the formal presentation of the evening. We are certainly here to take some questions.